Good evening, everyone. Tonight what we're going to do is talk about two extremely important parts of writing and literature. Those two things being tone and mood. Now, before we get started, please make sure you take out the notes-taking sheet that I handed you at the end of class. You're going to use this to write down any questions you have, write down anything that you believe is important that you can bring to class tomorrow and use either in a discussion with your peers, myself, or to bring as well so I can clarify anything. We can really maximize our time. So let's get started with the first thing being tone. Now, when I hear the word tone, I think of music. I think of my parents when I was younger saying, watch the tone of your voice, which is funny because it really is similar. Tone in writing is the author's feeling or attitude towards what they are writing. And when you think about the tone of your voice, you can make yourself seem really happy or you can make yourself seem really mad just by changing that tone. So by the author changing their tone and how they write, using things like dialogue, things that they're saying, things that they have characters saying, or description, describing the setting, describing a scene, they can really create that tone and develop that tone for you to see as well. You even think tone of music, there's minor tone and there's major tone. Major tone is always associated with things that's more upbeat, where minor is kind of scary or negative. But some examples of tone in writing, first would be angry. Now, maybe you're really mad at your friend and you want to write them a letter, and you're going to make sure that you use words that let them know that you're angry. Or maybe you went to a store and had a terrible experience. You might go onto Yelp and write a story or write a review that you weren't happy and you were disgusted, using different types of words and things like that, which is really using that author's craft to develop it. Or you might want to write something that's more humorous. Think about, I think about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid's book. Jeff Kinney does a great job of creating this silly dialogue between characters to let you know he's a very humorous person and he's trying to create that atmosphere. And finally, sad. There's a lot of ways that you might write it or create a sad tone or show a sad tone. For example, a eulogy, when you write about someone who passed or talk about someone who passed, the words and the things you talk about might really show that you're feeling sad. Or even great authors, where tone may change so much throughout the story. Authors like J.K. Rowling, in parts where she writes about Dumbledore dying, you can really hear that she's been writing about this character forever, so you could tell having to kill him off really, if she felt sad about it as well, which helped affect the mood, and we'll talk about that later. But tone, remember, it's how the author feels. So if you are writing, it would be how you feel towards the subject you're writing about. If I'm writing about the Eagles, I'm going to be I want people to know that I'm positive and that I'm happy. But I'm writing about the Cowboys, well, I'm not going to come off. I want people to know I do not like that team. So there's one other example. So writing about tone also helps develop our mood. You think mood, if someone says, what kind of, why are you in a bad mood? Why are you in a good mood? They're talking about how you're feeling. And just like movies can put us in a mood, or music, or weather, literature and writing can do the same thing for us. So mood is how the reader feels after reading a piece of writing. This is done through, whatever the setting is or the atmosphere. I think one of my favorite authors is Stephen King, and he does a great job of using his tone to write about these very creepy and scary situations, and if you're sitting alone and you're reading about them, in turn, you start to feel scared. You kind of start looking over your shoulder, you start thinking a lot. And, the good authors really do. They connect with you emotionally. Another thing would be joyful. Going back to what I talked about with Jeff Kinney in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, I know I've seen so many students who sit and they read Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and you watch them laugh and smile as they're going through and reading. So he's using that humorous tone to make the reader feel good, to make them happy, to make them want to keep reading. Now, one of my favorite genres is thriller, reading about detectives or private eyes, and that really can make you feel tense as you're reading, and you're on the edge of your seat and you want to see what is going to happen next, and you just can't wait. And you can like feel it, and like someone comes in and you want them to stop. It's like, oh no, I'm not done. I got to figure out what happens. So through tone, the mood is often created. And, these are the things that make reading so enjoyable. The fact that you can just read a page or a book or a story and it can change your whole mood. It can make you sad. I didn't like how that happened. Or make you happy, like, oh, I'm in a great mood. I just read a great book. So they're very, very important. Now, another thing to note is these things can both change often in literature. The mood of one chapter or the beginning of a story may be much different than the end. And the author uses their tone, and they may change their tone to develop that mood. They may want to take you on what people call an emotional roller coaster, where you're feeling sad, then you're happy, but at the end you look at the experience and you enjoy it. So a little visual to help you remember. Okay, tone comes from the thoughts towards something, how you feel about it, and you want to share that with the reader. And by sharing that with the reader and how you deliver your own tone and how you feel it can really affect the mood, which is how you feel. And remember, these things can change throughout, and sometimes the more they change and the more of a roller coaster is, the more enjoyable the piece is. So tomorrow, remember to bring in your notes, bring in any questions you have. Feel free to watch this again if you were a little confused, and maybe rewatching it will help you understand. And we'll look at a couple different examples, and we'll analyze how the author shows their tone. We'll analyze how that tone then in turn helps develop the mood. Great job, and I'll see you tomorrow.